and welcome to this very special episode BFSI 2.0 powered by Salesforce. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic is easily the biggest health and economic crisis that the world has ever seen. The disruption brought about by the pandemic has impacted all businesses, and banking, financial services and insurance or BFSI industry is no different. Financial firms have all responded quickly to make sure business continuity amid this pandemic, and as they navigate through this crisis, technology is going to play a big role to differentiate the strong players from the weak ones. But how ready are our financial institutions to get through this crisis unscathed, and what changes are they bringing about to stay ahead of the game? We have what have been their biggest learnings, and most importantly, what opportunities does this crisis present? To discuss that and more, I'm now joined by some of the stalwarts of the BFSI industry. Mr. Rajiv Anand, the Executive Director at Axis Bank, Abhimanyu Munjal, CEO and Founder at Hero FinCorp, Karan Bhagat, MD and CEO of IIFL Wealth and Asset Management, and Deepak Pargaonkar, the Vice President Solution Engineering at Salesforce India. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBCTV18. Mr. Anand, let me start by asking you first, what has the pandemic meant for Axis Bank, and how have you adapted, I don't want to say to this new normal, but to this post-COVID world?
As I've talked to customers across industries, I think one of the things that's amazed me is, one, the resilience, and two, the adaptability of corporate India to have dealt with this, really once in a lifetime, hopefully, pandemic. In Axis, first and foremost, it was about dealing with the safety and security of our people. That was the prime consideration that we had. And then it was really about getting business going. For example, in Axis Bank, we now have in excess of 15,000 people who are logging in through VPN, VDI, with a concurrency of about 10 to 12,000 people on a daily basis, because of the fact that we've used technology effectively to run the bank efficiently during this period, where most of us are, working from home. Yeah. And in a sense now, this really feels like it's business as usual now. Okay. We'll get back to more specifics on how you're, adapting to this, especially with this new work from home environment. Mr. Munjal, from an NBFC point of view, we've seen the sector go through its own challenges through the lockdown, whether it was with collections, even the own liquidity issues that the industry had been facing. What has been your own reading, and what are the changes that you brought about to navigate, through these last 4 or 5 tough months?
At Hero FinCorp, like Rajiv mentioned, similar to Axis, I got some data points where we did about 8,000 video calls a month, which we used to do about 1,000 video calls. These are internal video calls. So, technology is playing extremely important part to communicate within the organization. Not only within the organization, but also with the external customer. Yeah. Since this is the time that I believe last 5 months, the industry has become much closer to the customer.
Well, I see how you're managing your business, but I'm really not sure how you're doing those 8,000 video calls a month. But Mr. Karan Bhagat, you've been managing other people's risk for them and advising them what to do in these difficult times. I'm sure you've seen enough crises through your 2-decade-long career. But what has COVID-19 done to wealth management, and what are some of the changes that you have observed?
So I think it's been extremely challenging, as well as an interesting last 4 to 5 months. But I think overall, it's fair to say that we've seen much more maturity from clients this time around as compared to 2008, 2009, or potentially even 2001, 2002. I think overall, both as an industry as well as clients, we've been relatively more mature. Asset allocation has been the key. Diversification has been the key. I think in most cases, clients are well diversified. Equity, in most cases, not more than 40 to 45% of the portfolio. And that, I think, has made the portfolios extremely resilient. Even when the markets fell to 8,500, 9,000 temporarily, we didn't see any kind of panic reaction from clients.
Well, understandably so. Mr. Shivashi Chatterjee, one would assume that a digital lending company, at least like yours, would have found it easier to transition to the post-COVID world. What has been the reality on the ground?
First of all, thank you for having me here. And I think you've kind of got it spot on. The transition for us as a digital lending company has been relatively easy. But what we are seeing is that an event like COVID-19 creates huge disruptions amongst our partners, amongst our channels. So we are in the digital lending space, we are a B2B business, which is that we work with a lot of partners, and some channels are having a much tougher time. Where we see this going from here is figuring out how is something like COVID-19 going to accelerate trends that were already in place. And so we have to be very careful to differentiate trends that were already in place, which are getting accelerated because of COVID, and trends that are temporary and which are going to go away once we have some kind of a return to normalcy.
Okay.
And the way we see it, India has been on a secular path towards digitalization, I would say over the last 5 years or so. And so digital adoption is suddenly getting accelerated now in a way that is moving from adoption 1.0 to adoption 2.0. Adoption 1.0 tends to be the early adopters, people who look at new emerging technology, get excited about it, and adopt. Adoption 2.0 is when it goes mass market. Now, mass market adoption tends to take a longer period of time. It tends to be a slower moving process than early adoption. So I think those are the challenges that our industry as a whole is going to face.
Okay, Mr. Deepak Pargaonkar, you've heard from the NBFC, the banker, the fintech, and the wealth management companies. But given that you have a bird's eye view on the BFSI segment, what are the key transformation trends that have emerged over the last few months?
First of all, thank you very much, all the panelists and CNBC for having me here. Really very interesting conversation. And obviously, whatever Abhimanyu, Shir, Rajiv, and Karan have spoken about, they have actually dealt with the transition or the transformation in this post-COVID world. Now, what we have been seeing and what we have been observing when we interact with our kind of a diverse BFSI engagements, which is across maybe NBFCs, the fintechs, the banks, the insurance companies, there were a few things that we were observing. There was a really big focus that was coming on the employees. And I think all other panelists did say about that. It may be customer-facing roles or it may be non-customer-facing roles. They had to collaborate in a very new way. It might be for any customer-facing activity, or it might be some back-end operational decisions and many other things of taking care of the employees. There was a lot of focus, and I think it will continue, a renewed focus on employees. The other part that we started seeing is the speed. Lots of even senior leaders in the financial services, they were kind of working at a breakneck speed even for the decision making. See, digital transformation in financial services was always going on, even in India also. And we are lucky in a way to be having an opportunity to have worked with some of the eminent panelists over here. There were business model transformations, there were comprehensive automation of the existing systems. However, the transformation and the associated decision making, all those things started really accelerating as we started seeing when we were talking to the BFSI industry. So there were some tactical things that we were experiencing, demands coming to us to address those things on a technology front. And there were quite a few kind of strategic shifts also.
All right, hold your thoughts there, gentlemen. We'll take a short break on that note, but be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to this special episode of BFSI 2.0 powered by Salesforce. Mr. Rajiv Anand, speaking about customers and onboarding customers in this world where there's very little physical interaction. I know now RBI has allowed eKYC, but how has that transition been for you? And you think that will be the way going forward?
I think if you look at it in terms of payments, for example, digital payments, has been accelerating in this country, for many years. But I think the acceleration has been an order of magnitude higher during this period of lockdown. And so, therefore, what we're actually seeing is online transactions are actually at pre-COVID levels, while physical credit card transactions still continue to be much lower than where we were pre-COVID. And within the universe of transactions which are eligible for contactless or NFC payments, we are seeing a very, very strong acceleration in terms of growth there. And in that sense, Axis has been at the forefront. I mean, about 25%, 26% of our transactions in that universe are contactless. Even on the collection side, what we're seeing is that on a monthly basis, about 20 to 25% of monthly collections are coming through contactless channels. So, for example, our call centers, etc., are driving collections.
Okay. Abhimanyu Munjal, the same question to you. Customer onboarding in this new normal, how are you using the digital channels to expand the customer base? What is the new tech you're looking at?
As we speak, we are operating in about 22,000 pin codes in India. So fairly large business basis on, riding on the Hero MotoCorp's infrastructure. And as we speak, our business is back and running. We are being able to do eKYC through the technology platform that we have implemented. Though I would agree with what Rajiv said, that COVID is accelerating some of the, some of the stuff which was in the back burner in terms of digitization, right? And our focus really is digitization in collections and analytics. So, we have never seen so many payments come digitally or contactless as we are seeing now, day on day, week on week, month on month. So really, COVID has accelerated adoption of digital behavior, and in a good way, in which I think most NBFCs and the BFSI industry will capitalize on.
Perhaps in a much stronger fashion than what demonetization did for payments. But Karan, coming back to you, what is your sense on customer expectations that are changing? Because return across asset classes are down in AAA instruments and FDs, fixed income. It doesn't help that inflation has also been rising. So how are you managing that now?
So I think we've, as a firm, always been very, very sharp on the fixed income side. And we continue to kind of work very strongly to come out with safe fixed income ideas for our clients. Clients are grappling with a very tough opportunity right now because money market fund returns are down to around about 3.5%. Fixed deposits are down to 4.5%, and AAA instruments down to around about 5-ish. If you account for the 40% tax for a less than 3-year holding, or even a 15-20% tax for more than 3-year holding, the post-tax returns really on all these instruments are down to 3.5-4% at the best case, and in most cases in money market and fixed deposit instruments down to 2.5%, which more often than not doesn't even meet inflation. And clients largely are used to a risk-free return of 6.5% for the longest period of time.
Okay, since we're running short of time, quickly let me come to you, Mr. Chatterjee. Briefly, if you could tell us what are the high priority transformations or new investments that players like yourself are looking to make in the short and long term to ensure sustainability of your businesses?
So I think the highest priority when we look at digitalization, which is, as we've all discussed, the trend is towards acceleration of digital adoption. The highest priority is to make sure that technology becomes an additive tool to your business and does not become something which is detrimental to your business. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that introduction of technology changes expectations. It changes customer expectations, it changes internal stakeholder expectations. And unless you incorporate technology into your business in a way which meets those expectations, you will lead to dysfunction. So one of the examples that I like to use in this is customer service for everyone is a high priority item. And customer service involves reaching out to people, having them connect with you through various platforms. It is not as easy to make sure that all of these new technologies are talking seamlessly in the back end.
Yeah.
so that when your customer comes to you through a voice bot or a chat bot and gives you a certain amount of information, that information gets disseminated throughout the organization, so that when the customer comes back to you next time on your website or calls the call center, to make sure that that information is available of prior interactions on other digital channels. The biggest challenge is to make sure that the customer experience does not become dystopian because of a balkanization of the underlying technology. And to that end, again, a shout out to Salesforce, because Salesforce has helped the BFSI industry dramatically in providing a unified layer at the bottom end on which to build stuff.
All right, unifying your technologies. Karan, what about you? I mean, do you see more investments in tech going forward? Because online engagement seems to be the new name of the game.
So I think what's happened over the last 4 or 5 months, all of us become fairly technology savvy. I can't imagine, why we were taking 2, 4, 6 flights a week across the country, across the globe to do what we were doing. I think some of these adaptions or behavioral changes between relationship managers, clients, us, in terms of engaging more and more actively online is something which is here to stay. Then there is the entire investment portion, which is going to express itself in technology in different ways.
Okay, just quick wrap-up comments from you, Mr. Pargaonkar, as well. What do you think have been some of the biggest learnings from this crisis, which can be made into opportunities for the BFSI industry?
Fantastic. Now, all through the conversation, I kept hearing about the words that we always hear from the CEOs: transformation, customer centricity, agility. And that's what each of the leaders actually spoke about. And we have been hearing that. Organizations in BFSI are trying to build their businesses which are customer centric. Right from the time of acquisition, onboarding, the experience to the customer, people have been focusing on. Post acquisition, how do we keep them happy? How do we keep them giving the great experience? And there might be different business models. It might be a business model where the company is working with multiple partners in the acquisition or servicing. Now, what I can clearly see is post-COVID, as I initially said, the acceleration of all these transformational trends is clearly what we are seeing. And in each of the areas of functions, it might be onboarding, acquisition, mass personalization, all the customer-centric part of the business, they are going to be of a big focus. And as I earlier said, all of these things are going to be driven by enabled and empowered employees. And then, of course, all the things that even Shiv spoke about, the technologies like artificial intelligence, the bots, for you to make further optimization of your engagement with the consumer, for more sharper decision making, to keep growing that customer or their wallet share, etc. So we are seeing that transformational trends in financial services are really on acceleration. Customer is becoming the center of all the business strategies. Employees are getting a stronger focus from the leadership perspective. And all of these are great trends for any organization like Salesforce, who are always eager to partner with the leading organization in financial services to help them with the transformations.
Well, Mr. Rajiv Anand, what are your final words and the biggest learning you've had from this crisis?
I think managements have to be agile, and I think the learning agility has to be tremendous in times like this. Second is, I think it's very important to communicate with a larger organization. I think larger organizations need to get comfortable in what is a volatile environment currently. So the average employee, he's worried, about his job, he's worried about his health, he's working from home, he or she is working from home, and that is creating, some levels of anxiety. They are worried about whether the bank is doing well, not doing well, and in that sort of an environment, I think it's very important for senior managers to perhaps over communicate to calm the nerves of the larger organization. And I think ultimately it is really at times like this that you will be able to win the loyalty of your employees if you treat them right, during these times, it will certainly help the organization build a more caring culture, which ultimately should convert into performance in the long term.
Wonderful words there, Mr. Anand. Mr. Munjal, I'll give you the last words.
Sure. So, I think the geography is history now, right? So there are no boundaries. This is the time that every organizations need to reimagine, reinvent how the business model should work. Obviously, using technology, this is an opportunity for digital adoption to be accelerated. Really, opportunity for customer behavior to change and adopt to the kind of business that you want to do. So I believe there are a lot of learnings, but I see a larger opportunity within this pandemic, within this crisis, which as an industry we have to optimize and capitalize on. We can actually include a lot more of Indians in the formal financial services with this kind of a pandemic.
All right, Mr. Munjal, Mr. Pargaonkar, Mr. Anand, Mr. Chatterjee and Mr. Bhagat, all of you, thank you very much for taking time out and joining us here on CNBC TV 18. With that, we've come to an end of this special show. Thank you for watching and goodbye from all of us.